Chess YouTube, what is going on? In today's video, we're looking at an absolutely spectacular game played between Gukesh D, the reigning world champion, and Magnus Carlsen, the greatest player of all time, in the 2025 St. Louis Clutch Championships, which did just happen in late October. And this game came down to the very end. In this position, Gukesh blunders with the move Rook D1, and Magnus, he doesn't punish it. Instead, he plays the very peculiar move Knight to F4, which hits the queen, and there's all kinds of tactical ideas going on right here. Don't worry, we'll cover all of that in great detail. But first, let's start back from the very beginning. In the game, Gukesh here playing as white opens 1e4, best by test. And Magnus, in this position, he does not go e5 or c5 or any of the main lines here. Instead, he plays the move here d6, heading for potentially a Philidor defense, a Pirc defense, something like that. Let's see what happens. All right, Gukesh. d4, now knight f6, pressuring e4, knight c3, defends e4, and then e5, heading straight for the Philidor defense. And now Gukesh, if he wants it, he could simply trade on e5 and then trade queens with queen takes d8, heading for the endgame. Now, instead of that, he goes knight f3, defending d4 with that knight, a standard idea here, and also pressuring e5, and black does defend knight b d7. And now from here, the queens will stay on the board, most likely. All right, Gukesh, he's got a few options. The two main lines here for white involve bishop c4, sort of an Italian-style move, and then castles and so on. The other idea is either h3 or rook g1, intending a fast g4, g5, which, to be honest, is actually the strongest computer line here. Stockfish loves that line, but instead, bishop c4, the old main line played in the game. All right, Magnus, bishop e7, and both sides do castles, and castles, both sides following standard opening principles, castling their kings as soon as possible. Now, from here, the standard ideas of this opening are very well mapped out. White is going to go for moves like a4, h3, rook e1, and from there, perhaps bishop e3 and queen d2, or a d5 advance, and so on. And black, on the other hand, is most likely going to go, for example, c6, queen c7, rook e8, bishop f8, perhaps maybe some b5 action thrown in there, maybe taking on d4, and so on. And both sides do kind of go down the main line. Gukesh, a4, black, c6, threatening b5 potentially, and beyond that, setting up queen c7 ideas in the game. Now, Gukesh, rook e1, black h6 guarding g5, white h3 guarding g4 as well, and now rook to e8, setting up the idea of bishop to f8, pressuring the e-file just a little bit more with that rook via the x-ray attack on e4. Now, Gukesh here, he's played all of the standard ideas, bishop c4, a4, h3, rook e1, and so on are all the standard moves here for white. And now it's time for him to find some sort of plan. Now, there are a lot of options here. For example, you can gain space here with d5 or a5. You can take on e5. You can go bishop a2, retreating the bishop. You can also simply develop with a move like bishop e3, which was chosen by Gukesh in the game. Now, from here, black takes on d4. We have e takes. Part of the idea is trying to increase the scope of the rook on the e8 square. For example, after white takes back with literally any piece, black may go bishop f8, increasing pressure on e4 with that rook. Now here, Gukesh can take back with any piece he wants, the bishop, the knight, or the queen. And he takes back with the bishop here. Bishop takes d4, the strongest move and a very interesting choice. The knight staying on f3, pressuring e5, and white, it seems like he may be gearing up for some sort of e5 advance here, potentially. All right, Magnus, bishop f8, increasing pressure on e4 and controlling e5 with that rook, a very good idea. And now Gukesh, here he plays a very typical Gukesh-style move. This guy, he loves these elaborate middle game plans where he sort of slowly regroups his pieces in very strange-looking ways, and he plays a very standard Gukesh move here, knight to d2, retreating this knight. And what is the idea behind this move? Well, he is reinforcing e4 with that knight, but beyond that, he may be setting up ideas like queen to f3 or even f4. He just loves these elaborate middle game plans like this. Now, beyond that, you could go, for example, queen d2 and rook a d1. That is also fine here for white, but Gukesh, he finds knight d2 and he plays it. All right, Magnus, Mr. Maggie Man himself, how will he respond? Well, he also has many options, but in the game, knight e5 is the move, jumping in with that knight, pressuring the bishop. Now, that bishop is just so important. You cannot lose it. Yes, bishops are worth about as much as knights, but the two Bs are just so strong. You must keep that piece alive, and therefore, Gukesh, he does retreat. Bishop f1 is the move. heading back to the kingside. Now, you can go back to, say, b3 or a2. There's also very, very playable, but bishop f1 chosen in the game. All right, now, Magnus, knight g6, retreats the knight, and here Gukesh gains space on the queen side with the move a5. So Gukesh finding some really interesting squares for a lot of his pieces so far in this game. All right, Magnus, bishop b6, developing. Gukesh, g3, intending potentially bishop g2, and also trying to control f4, stopping temporarily knight to f4 ideas from black. Now, from here, Magnus, d5, gaining space in the center. Gukesh, bishop g2, developing. And now Magnus here plays a very, very active move, bishop b4, with multiple threats. The idea being, first of all, pressuring a5, threatening to win a pawn on the spot, but also pressuring this weak knight on c3, which could be very important in various positions. And black here has a lot of pressure on the white center. And what is white going to do about it? Now, very importantly, if white were to play, I don't know, sort of a wasted move like, say, king to h2, black here can simply win a pawn. For example, king to h2. And from here, black can just trade on e4 many, many times. Trades, and then win on a5. Bishop takes. And black here would simply be up a pawn with a very big advantage in this game. So, obviously, Gukesh, he can't allow that. And what does he find here? He finds the very strong move a6, gaining space on the queen side, the alpha 0 pawn, completing its journey all the way to a6. And what is the idea? Well, if you go b6 or trade on a6, either way, you're going to have a lot of weaknesses. For example, b6 weakens this diagonal, and beyond that, taking on a6 also weakens the pawn structure here tremendously, and white could recapture on a6 later in the game, regaining that pawn. So overall, a very clever idea, defending this pawn from the bishop, and also creating threats on the queen side. All right, Magnus, he takes an a6, b takes a6, now we have e takes d5, and then knight takes d5. Now we have knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, and queen takes. And finally, two more trades. Bishop takes, c takes, and c3. Gukesh simplifying to a very simple middle game where he has a small advantage. The point being, the black pawns on d5, a6, and a7 are a little bit weak. And overall, white does have the better pieces, the very strong outpost on d4. Gukesh finding a way to simplify to a very, very solid setup here. All right, black. The bishop on b4 is under attack. It retreats. Bishop f8 is the move. And here, white simply trades on a6. Rook takes a6 is the move. All right, black, queen b5, flying in with the queen, pressuring the rook. Rook's got to go somewhere beyond that. A b2 also being threatened by the queen. Rook to a2 is the move, sliding back. Now here, black, a5, gaining space, and despite having a small edge, we're already seeing Magnus sort of being the one in the driver's seat. The queen flying out, pressuring the rook, pressuring b2. Now a5, gaining space. I mean, Gukesh, yes, he is a little bit better here, but I don't know about this. Magnus here starts to be, he's starting to take over in this game, it seems like. All right, from here, Gukesh, queen to a4, sliding out with the queen, offering the queen trade. A solid idea, as if black trades, yes, Magnus is the best endgame player of all time. They don't call him Mr. Maggie Man for nothing, but if he trades, white's going to have a little pressure in the endgame on a5 and so on, and he will be a little bit better with the superior pawn structure and the superior minor pieces here. Now, instead, Magnus, queen d3 is the move. Again, sliding in with the queen, and we're already seeing just how Magnus is slowly but surely turning up the heat, increasing the pressure, and his target here may in fact be the white king on g1. All right, let's continue. Knight f1. The knight retreats. And now Magnus, rook to a6. What is the idea behind this move? It's simple. The rook on a6 is now defended by the queen, meaning there are fewer tactical threats against the rook versus, say, on a8, it is undefended. So rook a6, a solid move, and from there, the rook can go to, say, e6, whereas before, e8 was covered by the white queen. So a multi-purpose idea, defending the rook from tactical threats, but also preparing the idea of rook to e6. From here, Gukesh, b4, gaining space. Of course, the threat, if you capture the pawn on b4, you lose the rook, as the queen would be supported by the white rook on a2. Therefore, you can't do that. Instead, rook to e6 chosen. And again, Magnus, slowly but surely swarming in against the white king. Gukesh, rook d2, sliding back. With the idea being, of course, if rook e1, you lose the queen on d3. It is under attack, and therefore you can't do that. Instead, queen to f5. The queen retreats. Now, b takes a5, winning the free pawn on a5, but Magnus here takes on h3 as well. Queen takes h3, keeping the material even. But very importantly, we are now entering this position where both sides are attacking all out on opposite sides of the board. Magnus here obviously is just swarming in against the white king with the queen, the knight, the rook, maybe even the bishop later in the game, whereas Gukesh has the passed pawn on a5, which his plan is defend on the king side and push this pawn down the board ASAP as soon as possible. Gukesh here plays the move a6, pushing that pawn, missing the stockfish idea of queen d1, getting the queen back to defend ASAP. Instead, a6 chosen in the game. And now Magnus, rook e1, swarming in with the king, with the rook threatening checkmate on f1. Rook takes f1 is the threat. Gukesh, he defends, queen b5, a solid move, defending with the queen on f1, and now here Magnus finds a brilliant move, bishop c5. Look at this move. What is the idea? The bishop is poisoned two different ways. If you take with the bishop, bishop takes c5, you lose the game on the spot to knight to e5, threatening knight f3, and there is no good defense. The only defensive idea here is f3 or f4, but either way, you lose g3, and the game effectively, as of course the knight on f1 is pinned to the king. Now instead, if queen takes c5, that is even worse. Then rook takes f1 is literally checkmate. The queen had to defend the knight on f1. So bishop c5, a powerful deflection sacrifice, activating this piece and trying to deflect the queen or the bishop away from their very important squares, covering, for example, f1 or e5 like this. So instead, Gukesh flies back. Queen d3 is the move, trying to defend everything. But now Magnus trades on d4. White trades back, and then here, rook to a1, sliding over and threatening this pawn and maintaining all the tension in the position. Beyond that, ideas like knight h4, knight f4, and so on are still in the air. Gukesh, what does he do right here in this position? Well, turns out all he has to do is simply wait. It's still an even game. For example, queen to e2 defends everything. You get out of the way of, for example, knight f4 ideas where the queen would be, under attack via the x-ray attack by the black queen. So queen e2, retreating, guarding f4, defending the queen, and so on, keeping everything covered. That would be fine. From there, ideas like rook a1 or, rook a2 are being threatened as black doesn't really have an all-out attack yet. Now, instead of that, Gukesh, the world champion, showing that even the world champion can miss simple tactical ideas. Not simple, but they can miss, moderate complexity tactical ideas. He plays the move here, rook to d1. Okay, the idea is simple. You're defending f1. You're trying to get rid of this powerful rook on the a1 square. You're still defending a6 and so on. But this move, it loses on the spot if Magnus finds the best possible move. Now, the best move here is knight to h4, jumping in with that knight. What is the idea? It's simple. If you take the knight, well, first of all, threatening checkmates on the g2 square. You can't guard with queen f3, you lose the queen. You can't guard queen e4, you lose the queen. What if you take the knight? The idea being the queen is defended. The problem with that is queen to g4 with the double attack on the rook and the king, and black has two attackers on the rook, and he wins the game. For example, queen g3 defends the check, queen takes d1, wins the game on the spot. Now, Magnus here, he doesn't find the best move, knight to h4. No, instead, he plays the move knight to f4. An interesting choice. The same idea, threatening mate, attacking the queen, and again, taking on f4 does not work, as then queen to g5, again, has the same tactical idea. But Gukesh, in this position, he's not losing. Look at the eval bar, 0.00. Pause the video right now if you think you can see the saving grace for Gukesh in this game. He has one move that saves the game, everything else loses. Pause the video right now if you like tactical puzzles. Gukesh, in this position, has available the move knight to e3. This is the move that saves the game. Here is how it works. Let's say black takes the queen. First of all, you defend the checkmate. Let's say black takes the queen. That's the obvious idea, right? What if you capture the queen and the rook is still pinned? You can't take the knight. Well, white here takes the rook. What is the idea? It's the pawn. How can black defend the pawn? The best computer line here for both sides. This is the best engine line. Queen c8. Knight takes d5. Queen a8, blockading the pawn. Knight c7 hits the queen. Queen f3 gets out of the attack. a7, threatening a8, winning the game. And from here, the only thing black can do is deliver a perpetual check. Queen takes, king h1, queen f3, king h2, queen f2, and both sides go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's a draw. Instead, back here in this position, after knight to f4, Gukesh, with a draw on hand with the move knight e3, he resigns on the spot to Magnus Carlsen. He misses the idea of knight e3, Gukesh, the deep Indian calculator. He misses it and he resigns. What a shocking finish to this game. I mean, comment down below if this is one of the most shocking conclusions to a game you've seen. Gukesh, the world champion, missing a draw on the spot. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed the video. This is a shocking game to me. I mean, comment down below your thoughts on this game and smash the like button if you can. And by the way, if you still made it this far and you enjoy these videos and you want to learn directly from me and play some real-time blitz games versus me, go to drmikechess.com. That is my free Skool community where you can go there. I have free courses, free group coaching, free monthly challenges. You can win insane prizes, including a 1-year diamond membership to chess.com. I give out 3 of those every single month to the winners of my 30-day challenge. That's right. You can literally win a 1-year diamond membership to chess.com. It's free to join, free to compete, 3 winners each month, plus I mean, nine total winners. That's the grand prize, but I digress. Anyways, go there if you want to, drmikechess.com, and I'll see you in the next video.